Me, Molly Helmers, and I'm a member of the generosity team, which is how I got roped into this. Let me adjust my screen just a little bit so I know what I'm saying. I'm not going to talk too long. I'm going to let David introduce the group and talk a little bit about the songs that he's going to play for you tonight. But I just wanted to say thank you to him, especially because there was really no arm twisting necessary. I think this was actually David's idea. So the generosity team had been talking about doing some type of event this spring, and he suggested that he would be willing to do this concert for us. So David is also a member of the generosity team, and most of you probably remember the generosity team started to form about 3 years ago after Mark Ewart came to visit. And I guess we consider ourselves an expansion of the stewardship committee. And our goal is to look for ways to help build what we like to call a culture of generosity. So the giving side is pretty straightforward. In that side, our role is to encourage our members and friends to be more intentional about how they support the fellowship with their time, talent, and treasure. But we also talk a lot about the receiving side, and that is our role as individuals and as a congregation as a whole to acknowledge and thank those who contribute to the greater good. And so that's what we're doing this evening. I guess it's kind of a collective thank you. We wanted to do something special to acknowledge that despite all of the ups and downs of this crazy year, we're still here together, and that we're grateful for each and every one of you. And I think there's no better way to celebrate spring and this beautiful day and all of the new beginnings than with the gift of music. So thank you to David for sharing his gift with us. We're going to have about 30 minutes of music to start off with, and David and the trio recorded this. So I think there's 5 songs that have been recorded. We decided that the recording was really the best way to go because we were concerned that doing it live might result in some technical difficulties that we didn't want to have to stress about. So this is going to allow us to have the highest possible sound and video quality. Then we'll take a really quick break. And after that, David has agreed to have kind of a conversation with people about his songwriting process and about his music. So if you have some questions, he's happy to talk about that process. Our hope is that we can keep it to about 60, 75 minutes. And if we can all mute ourselves, that will allow us to hear the music the best. And video is up to you if you want to leave your video cameras on or if you want to turn them off. Either way is okay. Just remember, if they are on, that all of us can see you at home. So I think that's about it to get us started. Bradley is behind the scenes doing his magic, and he is going to pop David on the main screen, I think, and David can talk a little bit about the group and the first few songs. So I'll turn it over to him.
All right, thank you, Molly.
Yep.
And thanks everybody for being here. This was sort of a selfish gift on my part because I told the generosity team that the band was we hadn't been able to play live in over a year. And we'd only started practicing again recently once we found a big enough space where we could stay socially distanced. So we had been practicing about 15 feet apart from each other. And actually my 2 bandmates, both educators, and so they had just gotten their second vaccines. So I was the only one who wasn't vaccinated at this point, but this video you're about to see, which isn't the greatest quality because we're in this basement where we were able to practice, is the closest we have been together physically in over a year. So we scooted close enough together that we could all get on camera and then just filmed it in our practice basement. My band members actually both live in Lawrence, Kansas. So the drummer is Andy Bricker. He's a physics teacher at Lawrence High. And the bass player is Michael Maher, and he is a school social worker in the school district in Lawrence, Kansas. So the video actually came from there. And I will say that if you do have decent speakers or if you have headphones, you'll probably get a better audio experience because there's a lot of, we're heavy on bass in this band. There's only 3 of us, and the bass is sort of the lead instrument in many parts of the songs. So if you have headphones or good speakers, I would recommend that. If you're just listening on your computer speaker, it might sound a little bit thin, but that's okay. It's still fun. So this is just a chance for us to do something. Consider this a live show. There's not really any talking between songs. We just play the songs through like we were at a set in a bar at a concert venue. As Molly said, between the last song and there's a little bit of an acoustic encore where I provide a completely acoustic version of a song that was the last song we played. So the 5th song we'll play will be reprised later with me just acoustic, and that was actually the original version of the song. I thought people might get a kick out of that, seeing how songs can change depending on who's playing them, both in terms of their point in life and the actual human beings playing them. And then the last thing I'll do, just because I like this, is I will post the lyrics in chat as each song is going. So those of you who are like me and used to like to read the liner notes and read all the lyrics, you can actually follow them along there in the chat function. I'll just post them during the song. Know that, and those of you who just want to listen can just listen. And know that these are all original songs, so I doubt any of you have heard them before, although I've played the last one in the fellowship services a couple of years ago. So some people might even remember that one. So this is the Dave Slade Trio, live via tape from a basement in Lawrence, Kansas. And I hope you all enjoy listening.
Good evening, everybody. We are the Dave Slade Trio. It's our great pleasure to be playing for you tonight. And this is pre-recorded, but it's still live. So just pretend like you're at a dank bar or out at a band shell or something like that and try to enjoy a little taste of pre-COVID life on video. This first song is called Flow.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Where the rivers run, used to lead to exotic land. felt the need to assert control, divert my flow. Spring seduced you with the face forever young. You drained my heart with green promises on your tongue. Tame the water, make it yours. Change its bed to fit your course. Push it away. You fight the flow, you fight the source. You fight the flow, you fight the source. Push it away. And seasons lead even if no one follows, and years flow on by. All right, thank you. This next song is much older than that one. This one's called Milk Train. We'll fire it up with the drummer.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Most right, thank you again. I was feeling bad during that whole song because I called Andy the drummer. I should introduce these folks. So on drums is Andy Bricker. On bass and lead bass is Michael Maher. And most of you out there know me from the fellowship. I'm Dave Slade. And once again, it's great to be here. We're going to take a much more a bit of a journey here. Jazz Odyssey. Just kidding for those Spinal Tap fans out there. So this is called Riding Down the Road. right, thank you. Nice work, Michael and Andy. We're going to change pace a little bit here. The song's called Ode. This might be closer to a jazz odyssey.
I start or do you
Yep. All right, take it away. All right, thank you. Nice lead bass there, Michael. All right, our last one for tonight is a song called County Road Number 8. And this will be reprised later in the event as an acoustic version, so you get to see the original, how it started. But this is how it ended up, and it's a lot of fun to play, and I hope it's a lot of fun to listen to. Let me get my setup here. All right, County Road Number 8. All right, thank you all. Thanks, Dave Slade Trio, Michael Maher, Andy Bricker, Dave Slade. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.
Don't leave. That's not the end. Dave, I can say the words and you can just move your mouth and maybe it'll look like you're speaking my voice.
Am I talking? Is it my turn to talk?
It's my turn to talk.
Okay.
You're going to talk in a minute. Hold your
Okay.
horses. That was great though. That was really cool. And my spare bedroom is not like a dank bar, but I still had a good vibe going. I like that. Can everyone hear me? You can hear me, right? All right. We're just going to pause for a couple of minutes here. If you need to grab a drink, let the dog out, do whatever you need to do, because we're going to come back. And as David mentioned, we have a short encore, and then he's going to take some questions or talk to you all, whichever you would like. When we came up with this idea for the concert, we really wanted it to be kind of fun and interactive and personalized. So the second part is where we get to that. So first, I want to take a minute to announce two really exciting developments moving forward this spring at the UUFA. We get to talk about roofs. We all need one over our heads, and the one at the UUFA has just seen better days. We all know that because we've been talking about replacing the roof forever, it seems like. And the good news is that it is really going to happen, and it is going to happen soon. And we have a fantastic team working behind the scenes to make it happen. And the hardest part, at least for us, because the roofers have the really hard part, but the hardest part is done. And all of you are going to receive a letter courtesy of Dave Fox and Larry Kierson this coming week about the roof project. We are on the home stretch, but we do have the last leg of fundraising left to accomplish. So if you could watch for the letter in your mailbox, not your inbox, it's an actual posted letter, and consider their request. And I'd like to send out a special thank you to Larry and Dave for their generous gifts of time and talent, because this is not the kind of project I or a lot of us would want to take on. And of course, their treasure. Second announcement that I would like to make is that I know a lot of us are anxious to get back to in-person services and be done with this whole pandemic. But for others, this whole remote thing is a real advantage. And the fellowship recognizes that going back entirely to normal isn't necessarily the best idea, or possible for that matter. And so there's an entirely different team of people at the UUFA right now working on a major upgrade to our audiovisual system. And the new equipment that we're looking at and the setup is going to allow us to use more digital content in our live services. And it's going to allow us to do hybrid services and hybrid meetings in a way that both the Zoom participants and the in-person attendees feel like they're active participants. So this is a really great project moving forward. These types of infrastructure projects aren't really that glamorous. And from a fundraising perspective, as many of you know who have been involved in stewardship or on finance committees, these can be a hard sell. And I know in the generosity team, we often joke about it's no fun to raise money to keep the lights on. And I put the roof in that category, right? But last time I made that comment, Ben Moline kindly reminded me that it's not just that we need to keep the lights on, but we need to think about why we want to keep the lights on. And I think that that was a great point. And another 30 years of life for our beautiful building to house our services and our celebrations and our religious education and all this improved technology to keep us connected. That's pretty exciting. It's not glamorous, I know, but it's still pretty exciting. And I think we're setting ourselves up for a really great future at the fellowship. So please do keep your eyes open for more information about both of those projects. And that is all I have for my announcements. And we're going to treat you to one last number by the Dave Slade Trio. This was the acoustic encore that Dave mentioned. And then once that wraps up, I think, Dave, you're going to jump right back in and just share some informal thoughts and take some questions. So we'll turn it over to Bradley to get that video started. And did you want to say something, David, first?
Sure. I can just remind everybody, this is actually the original version of this song. It wasn't as much fun to play it this way with the band, so we made it a lot more up tempo, but I think this will give you some insight into how I felt when I wrote it anyway. And then we can talk about that later if you want.
Great.
All right, hi there again. This is the reprise of the last song the trio played, a song called County Road Number 8. And the reason I thought it might be interesting to do it again and show you how it was originally written is that the original song was actually a very kind of sad and slow and introspective song about regret. And that's not really how it sounds when the band does it, but thought you might appreciate seeing kind of two different interpretations of the same song. It's also in a different key and has a few different things going on, but this is County Road Number 8 as originally conceived. All right, hi there again. This is the reprise of the last song the trio played, a song called County Road Number 8. And the reason I thought it might be interesting to do it again and show you how it was originally written is that the original song was actually a very kind of sad and slow and introspective song about regret. And that's not really how it sounds when the band does it, but thought you might appreciate seeing kind of two different interpretations of the same song. It's also in a different key and has a few different things going on, but this is County Road Number 8 as originally conceived. County Road Number 8 has no surprises, and it can only take you home. Since you can't abandon what you have inside you, there's no good reason to go. There's a bridge that connects it to the highway, but it can't bear a body's weight. Walk nice and slow, and it might hold you someday, or just stay safe on number 8. And number 8, it should have been a lucky number for folks who live along the county road. They work at raising food and raising families, watch the hot shots and their grand plans come and go. County Road Number 8 don't run to Nashville. There's no need to go there. It only winds its way between the hills, just a local thoroughfare. A local thoroughfare. A local thoroughfare. Number 8, it should have been a lucky number for folks who live along the county road. They work at raising food and raising families, and watch the hot shots and their grand plans
come and go. County Road number 8 has no surprises. It can only take you home. All right. Thank you all. Look forward to chatting here in a minute. All right. Well, thank you everybody who made it this far. Molly, I think, are we done with the official business part of the evening?
We are done with any official business. This is all just fun now. Not that the other wasn't fun.
Yeah. So I just thought I'd offer time if anybody wanted to talk about songs or songwriting or how I ended up with 2 completely different versions of the same song. Or not. It's okay too if everyone just got to get their taste and wants to go on about their evenings. So this was just meant to be an offer if people wanted to ask me anything or tell me anything.
I have a question, Dave. I'm wondering, when you write your lyrics, is there like a certain phrase that you start with words and then the rest just comes? Or tell us how you do the lyrics.
That's a very good question, Jenny, because it's kind of a grab bag for me, but I think what you said is right. Oftentimes there's either a phrase that sticks in my head, or there's a thought or a feeling or an idea that I want to try to capture. So sometimes it does start with the actual words. They just sort of get hung up there. There's a couple of those, like the Milk Train song, which is the second one, that just came from this idea that there's too many Daves. And that was being used. There's too many Daves. My friends kept saying that because there's a whole bunch of us named Dave at the time. So I thought, well, that's funny. And then combine that with the Milk Train doesn't stop here anymore. And those two phrases kind of went through my head. And so that's where that song came from. But sometimes it's just a feeling, and then the words come out to try to get that feeling. And then I'll say one thing too, since you mentioned words. I always thought of myself as writing songs for other people to sing. I never was the singer in the bands I was in early on. And so when I write songs, I think about other people singing them. So they're not really, if they feel deeply personal, sometimes I'll leave them alone, but other times I'll try to spread them out a little bit and leave them a little more ambiguous to try to leave room for somebody else to hear something in them or do something with them. But that's because I don't really think of myself as the front person, you know.
Thank you.
And Molly asked, do you write lyrics first and then the music, or vice versa? That's another one that I've done it a bunch of ways. Usually what will happen is I'll have some words that I like, but not a full song. And I'll have some music stuff that I like, and it just kind of feels like they could go together. And then once you get the first part down, then you can add the rest of the words. It's kind of like having a half-formed lyric and most of the music, and then you piece them together, and then that helps write the rest of the lyrics. But it also sometimes tells you need another musical part. So sometimes it leads to more musical parts too, because like the words need to go someplace, or it just doesn't feel like it's done yet. So some songs like Riding Down the Road has a bunch of parts. Those are just they almost could have been snippets of completely different songs, and I just enjoyed patching them all together into a 3-part song that had 2 sets of those same 3 parts.
Mm-hmm. Whoa.
Dave,
Really good questions, by the way.
Dave, I'd like to hear more about how your trio got together.
That's a really good one, really, because so the two men playing with me, Mike and Andy, were in other bands that I was in when I used to live in Lawrence. So we moved to Ames 14 and a half, almost 15 years ago. And when I moved, I had to leave behind my bands. So I played in a band with those two, where Mike, the bass player, was actually the lead guitar and front person, the singer, and I was the bass player. And Andy was always the drummer. The drummer was the drummer. But Andy had played in a couple other bands with me. And so what had happened was I had written a lot of songs. I probably have maybe 40 songs I wrote back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then I became a PhD chemical engineer and came up here and started working, and I stopped writing songs. So I haven't written a song in almost 20 years now. So those are all old songs that Andy had heard. And back in that time period, he was my most generous listener. So he always liked the songs, and I always had trouble getting other people to really want to mess with them, because there's a certain amount of work that has to go into getting a band to learn a song to decide if they like the song or not. And so if it's a cover song that everybody knows, you say, hey, let's go play Rocket Man, and say, oh yeah, I know, I like that song, let's do it, and you learn it. But to take a completely new song that I can't even really play the way I hear it, you get a band to learn it just so we can decide if we like it or not, didn't really work out. So I had all these songs I'd written that had never been played. And Andy was in Lawrence, and he asked me, can I use your songs? Can I play them? He was in a different band. Can we use your songs? I said, sure, that'd be great. I'd love for somebody to do something with them. And just like it had been 20 years ago, it didn't work out so well. No one really wanted to do them, and because they hadn't heard them, they didn't know how they sounded. Oh. So on a visit to Lawrence, I started playing with him and his son, who was like 13 at the time. I think his son was playing ukulele, and Andy was playing keyboard, and I was playing acoustic guitar. And it led to another, and our friend Mike said, we started to have more fun and started to learn a couple songs, and Mike happened to be over visiting, and he said, hey, can I play with you guys? And I said, well, do you want to play bass? He goes, sure, I've never played bass, but I'll give it a try. And then I switched to electric guitar because I had some nerve problems. I couldn't play the acoustic guitar anymore. And all of a sudden, for me at least, these songs came alive, where I was playing electric guitar but strumming, and Mike was playing bass, and Andy was playing drums, and then it just sort of, all of a sudden, it just snowballed. And we just started really enjoying it, so we started learning more and more songs and digging up more songs and learning more songs. So it's kind of, we're in a weird situation because most new bands struggle to come up with enough material. We've got loads of material, we just don't have enough time to learn it all. So we're sort of learning them, as we can, while not forgetting the ones we already tried to learn.
Well, that's quite a journey you've been on.
It's an amazing journey. I mean, of all the things for me, that's the most gratifying by far, is to have these songs that I wrote so long ago finally coming to life, and in a way that I never thought they would. Because like I said earlier, I always imagined someone else would sing them, and I would be the bass player or the rhythm guitar player or whatever. And now I'm learning how to be a front man.
So Dave, how often are you able to get the trio together to practice? And have you been able to do any kind of remote collaboration?
So we've done a little bit with learning songs, where I'll play a rough version, the drummer can put a track down, and we can kind of pass them back and forth. But as you saw, it's pretty sort of organic stuff. So mostly I just drive down to Lawrence about every 2 or 3 weeks. And the only thing that makes me feel better about that, by the way, is I have my old 17-year-old Jetta, and I'm able to fill it up with biodiesel. So I feel a little bit better about my carbon footprint. But other than that, yeah, I've driven down, and pre-COVID, they had come up a few times as well. And since they're teachers, they have the summers off. So imagine this summer, if I can get enough vacation, and hopefully we can get together. I'll get vaccinated. But yeah, it's been about on average, maybe once a month, Dan, we've practiced. So I'll drive down, we'll practice like Friday, Saturday, Sunday on a weekend, and then I'll drive back up. And I gotta say one more thing, these guys are so good. They're such good musicians, and we know each other so well. Like, we can learn, 3 songs in a weekend, which is unheard of, So now we may not remember them a month later, but we can at least get the groundwork laid. And so we've got, I don't know, maybe 22, 23 songs now we can choose from, after about 1.5 years or almost 2 years now of trying to play once a month.
I'm curious to know when you started performing, like when you learned an instrument. I mean, was this like I played guitar in the high school jazz band and then it developed into something else, or like how did this
Yeah.
all come about?
No, that's another great one. So I did play in band in high school. I played trumpet, and I was a very lackluster trumpet player. I had taken guitar lessons in grade school. I had this, like, fourth grade. I had this great true hippie of a music teacher, and I really loved her. And she taught guitar, so my mom got me this classical guitar, and I went and took lessons from her for a couple of years. But then I didn't play guitar again until I was in my 20s. So I went to graduate school for the first time in chemical engineering and decided I didn't want to be a chemical engineer. I was in Davis, California, and I went to see a lot more really good live music than I'd ever seen before in Kansas, and became obsessed with live music, and realized I wanted to be a musician, and I probably always had. And so I started playing guitar seriously when I was 24, 23. But I played all the time. I mean, I played to the point where I barely got through my master's degree, basically. But there was no band at that point. So then I moved back to Lawrence and started playing with a different group of people. And then it kind of, those guys that I'm playing with now joined that group, and we joined each other's groups. And so I spent most of my 20s, my mid to late 20s and early 30s, trying to be a local musician in Lawrence, Kansas. And then finally realized I needed to make a living. At that point, we had 2 kids, and I went back to grad school to get my PhD in chemical engineering, and that's why I'm in Ames.
Oh,
But I started late. The only thing I can say I did do is I played a lot. So I played obsessively for many years.
Hey, David, I keep thinking you must have a lot more songs in your head. Is that true?
I hope so. I got to say that, I mentioned this great advantage of having this backlog of material. I mean, given my job, as you know, I've talked about it, I really like my job, and I like what we're doing. We're trying to get biodiesel out there into the world. It's too much work for me to even tell if there's any songs in my head. It takes everyone, I guess, back to the songwriting process, what I've learned about myself is it takes massive amounts of completely dedicated, nothing going on time. Like, I can't even have a television or the computer. It just takes so much time for me to get going. Now, then once the song starts, it usually happens pretty fast, but I mean, I might just have to pick around with something and I might just ignore it for 2 hours. I might be mowing the lawn, and all of a sudden you start to hear something, but then I need the luxury of going in and being able to spend 4 or 5 hours to mess around. And that's what I don't have now. So it's a real blessing to have these songs already written, and I just have to dredge them up and remember them. What I would hope is that once we've learned all those and we're out of new material, maybe I can find a way to carve out some bigger blocks of time and be a little more disciplined with my free time. But it's hard for me to write a song. I think it's hard for everybody, but it just takes all this time and you can't have any distractions. Like, the slightest bit of distraction and it's all gone. So
Dave, is it a
watching the
conscious?
clouds. You're looking at the clouds to see something. If you see something, you'll act on it right then. Otherwise, it's just going to change and it's moved away.
Dave, do you make a conscious decision that you're going to repeat the last line 3 times?
Yes. I mean, as opposed to just repeating it 2 times or 4 or 5 or sometimes.
Or not repeating it at all, just drifting out and stopping, but you actually, in the songs, repeat the last line, at least as far as I can tell, 3 times. So I was wondering.
Yeah, maybe all these, they don't all, I can promise that. But yeah, a lot of times I do that. And it's usually, for my brain, it's musical, right? We're trying to tie the music to an end. Sometimes it's the idea, you just want to repeat the idea. But mostly it's for the music. So most of the time, think of the words as being written like a paragraph almost, and then figuring out how to use them so that we like the way the music goes, if that makes sense, Rob. The music feels like it should repeat 3 times, and then the lyric gets repeated 3 times. But 3 is supposed to be a magic number now that you say that. So maybe that's why it's always 3. Well, I tell you what, there's a nice pause there, and it's been over an hour. We got to our Molly's target of, I think we're at 58 minutes or 68 minutes. So you guys know me, I'm around. If you think of any more questions, don't hesitate to ask me next time you see me. But I really enjoyed this part of it. I wasn't sure what would happen. I knew with the UUs, I'd get a lot of questions of some kind. So those were excellent, thought-provoking questions. And it was really a pleasure to do this. I'm really excited to have a chance to do something that feels like a live performance again, even if it was on tape.
Dave, this is Kitty Fisher. I just really enjoyed your music, and it was good to hear your voice. So I hope maybe you'll do this again. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we could definitely.
Thank you, Dave.
This was kind of a test for us actually to see if we could even record it. So that's the other bird we got to kill with this stone was, can we actually record a live video? And it worked. So I think we're ready to do it again in a few months or less if we're not actually playing in person somewhere.
I was going to say, fingers crossed, maybe we'll have a live in-person concert sometime in the next year.
Yeah, no, we definitely do it. We practiced in the sanctuary one time before one of our few gigs before we got shut down, and the sound in there is really good.
Yeah.
I think I've told people that before, so I'm sure I could talk the band members into playing in the sanctuary sometime if people want to see more.
Thank you, Dave. Be sure.
Thank you.
As well.
I will, Rilla. Thank you. They were happy to do it too. They liked. It's good to have a goal. It's good to have something to do, that's concrete instead of just practicing for the sake of practicing. So